Hello there. Welcome to ShedX Lockdown Legacy. I'm going to be speaking to Jason Edwards pretty soon. He is a best-selling author and also a world-class barricade and hostage negotiator. He's going to be coming on in a few minutes to share about his life and time and some of his knowledge, and we're going to see what we can do, see if we can get everything up and running. We had a few tests this afternoon. We had a few problems with sound, I think, but I'm just going to try and get this onto the Jack W Gregory accidental journalist page, and then people can join from there as well. There we go. So that the link should be up on the Jack W Gregory page. So we just wait for some people to come in and say hello, and then we'll get Jason involved and we'll try and get him in and see where we get from there. Hi, Cal. Let's have a look. So we're going to share the broadcast. I'm going to invite some people. And see if we can get going, shall we? I have to excuse the face and the voice while we start. Let's invite Jason into the chat. Here we go, Jason Edwards. So we just wait for Jason to come in. He'll be here about past, and hopefully we can start. Can people tell me if sound is okay and picture is okay from your end? We had some connection problems earlier. Hi, Bonafide. So we're just waiting a few minutes for Jason to come, and then we can start. So if you've got any questions you'd like to ask, post them in the comments down here, and we'll see what we can do towards the end of the interview. Hi, Darren. Yeah, so we're just waiting for a few people to come into the chat, into live, and just waiting for Jason. Here he is. So I'll just give it a few more seconds, and then we'll invite Jason in to have a chat. Here we go. Hi, Jason.
Good evening, Jack. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. That's better. I'm not in the shed tonight. It's a bit cold. We've got the kids in bed, so I'm in the house.
Okay.
It's house X, really, but there we go.
Oh, yeah. I am slightly disappointed because I love the idea of ShedX.
Well, it's a great idea, but the signal out there isn't so great, as we found out this afternoon. So I think get some sort of bouncer to up the signal in there as soon as we
I
get that.
think I think that might be something you and I actually share, Jack, amongst many other things. I am proud to admit I am a failed TEDx candidate.
Yep.
Yep. You were going to do ShedX, I was going to do Ed Talks.
Yeah. So tell us, what were you going to talk about on TEDx?
I was actually going to talk about how to calm someone in a negotiation or a crisis if it is a hostile situation, to actually get them to acknowledge and accept emotions, and how you get people to then label their own emotions. And the minute it does that, it goes from the unconscious brain to the conscious brain. And the minute that happens, people then start to immediately get a bit introspective and calm things down a bit. Then you can start working with people.
Is that sorry? Is that because calming it kind of resets the brain? Because obviously, if you're in a hostage situation, you're holding hostages, your heart rate's going to be going fast. You're not going to be thinking straight. So is that to put them back into a sort of straight
Yeah,
mind?
you've got it, Jack. It is technically, you'd say you were getting someone to go from the emotional content to the logical content of the brain. So immediately, people just stopped. It's kind of like what the very famous crisis negotiator Chris Voss calls tactical empathy. It's when you can start to actually demonstrate that you not only understand what people are talking about, or but what is the reason for their behavior, and you can acknowledge that you can understand the reason for the behavior, and then you start moving them out of that emotional state and more into the logical state. So yeah, you're absolutely bang on, because when people get into a crisis, they don't always think it's pure raw emotion, and they start projecting. But if you bring that back to the logical side a little bit, then people start to calm down, and you can actually have a more serious conversation and start to get them to look at the options.
So is there a typical reason that um, sort of a key set reason that somebody would take somebody hostage? Is it conditioning? Is it conditioning in childhood? What is that?
The crisis situations that I've become involved in, the situations where somebody has been actually detained against their will, within a hostage or a barricade situation, primarily the main reason was, believe it not, change. Somebody could not accept change. I think it was Louise Hay and Feel the Fear and Did It Anyway, if that's got the right quotation, that she said the biggest fear anyone ever has is change, fear of change. And one of the cases I was actually involved in was when somebody was actually fearful of their partner leaving them, when they found out something out about them. They were so fearful of that, rather than actually lose that person, they barricaded themselves in, and at one point were actually threatening to kill them, rather than actually not have them in their lives and have them be with somebody else. That seemed like the viable option, because they just could not accept change.
So that's fear of rejection as well.
Yeah, there would have been a lot of low self-esteem issues in there. There would have been that massive fear of rejection. But mostly it's when somebody has that complete inability to conceptualize a brand new future, maybe without someone, or without a job, or without a position, or if maybe somebody found out they're actually going to be incarcerated for a while and there was a whole fear of that. It's that, rather than acknowledge that, I will just create this almost this brand new matrix type world where I will barricade myself in here. Logically, you can't hold out forever. Some people have held out for some incredibly long times in different barricade and hostage situations, but emotionally, for that time, you've created a safe space. So you have to acknowledge that with people. You have to let people actually have that is a safe space for them. And it's the oldest acronym of all. Whenever you're doing anything within any kind of crisis work, if there's a high level of violence, if you're talking, you're not shooting.
Mm.
So that's where you
So,
always need to keep people engaged.
so can I ask where this, um, for you, where this want to help people resolve conflict comes from? Is it?
You can. It comes from my childhood. I grew up in the middle of Birmingham, and I grew up in the middle of Birmingham in the 70s when there was an awful lot of conflict going on. There was a lot of social integration, a lot of cultural integration. And I think if you just grew up with it, as I did, it probably didn't mean anything to you.
Mm,
But because there was becoming more and more clashes with rival gangs, rival cultures, I used to actually watch some of these fantastic, brilliant community leaders get people together in either community halls or just open spaces and calm situations and talk situations down just by responding and listening and acknowledging the differences between people and
mm,
getting them to communicate. And as a young boy, I just used to like sit on a wall with my friends, just watching these things going on, thinking these guys they're like magicians. Like, what are they saying? You know, what words do they use? But as I got older, I actually found out it wasn't what they were saying; it was how they were listening. It was what they were actually listening for. So that was
mm,
a big input on my young life with actually watching potentially violent situations, crisis situations, just being absolutely calmed down by people talking and listening.
mm.
Simple as that.
I can kind of I can kind of relate that. I grew up in the 80s in a small market town in Yorkshire that was surrounded by pit towns. And as we know, in 1984, a lot of the mines got shut. Um, and I saw firsthand some of the damage that that did. But I also remember enigmatic leaders such as Neil Kinnock, Arthur Scargill, who were in, the unions and trying to resolve conflicts. I never quite, up until sort of getting my emotions and shit, I never quite understood the power of words.
Yeah.
Do you think for you that that is something that there's something magical in that, the power of words and being able to not control somebody? I'm not saying you're Darren Brown or anything, but you know, do you think that the right words can either soothe or set someone off, or you
Yeah.
know, is that down to tone? Is that down to intent? What's that down to?
A while ago, there's two things there. First of all, something I learned because I was actually really fortunate to do some training with Chris Voss, who, if you ever look him up or Google him, you'll just see he was one of the highest rated FBI negotiators and kidnap and ransom negotiators. And he was saying that um, always be mindful of your tone because he said we'd had some awful people come and work for us who just said the wrong thing, but they said it the right way. So it didn't really matter.
Hmm.
So when people ever ask me, because a lot of the time, some of the work that I do, be it with local council, governments, the police, they'll often say, how did you do that? And I always say it's quite simple. Calmest man in the room. So that tone, that rhythm, that pace, absolutely, you've got to bring everything down. You can't let people elevate you to their level. By level, I mean level of excitement, but you can actually bring it down to a nice lower level. And regarding words, you've hit upon another key element here. Narrative is so important, and people will often talk about controlling the narrative. But I think what's more important as a negotiator or mediator, because a lot of the work I do is involved in mediation as well, is about reframing the narrative. So if somebody will say to me, I know they are doing that just to get at me, you've got to start checking out how you can reframe that narrative. You know, what is going on for your neighbor that perhaps you weren't aware of? Or how do you know they're doing that? You know, have they ever actually said, We are doing this just to get at you. And then people will start to question it. And then you can start to actually, like I say, it's not about, they talk about bending reality. And you can do a little bit of that. But I actually prefer to call it dragging people back into reality. Because in, I think, 10 out of 10 crisis case I've ever been to, the reality of the situation is completely different from the actual mindset of somebody who is potentially in a crisis situation themselves. They're just not seeing the world as it is.
Mm. So is there anything that we can do as the public that if you see, one of the things that I find difficult since I got sober and started dealing with my mental health is dealing with other people's attitude and anger, possibly not at me, but
Yeah,
a situation. Is there anything that we can do to ourselves to stop ourselves from sort of going
absolutely.
off?
Absolutely. There's several different techniques that you can actually use, but just quickly, some of the things that I always put myself into. First of all, and I was reminded of this recently when I was talking to someone in a one-to-one session who'd also done some crisis work, was acknowledging that, and you have to acknowledge it for yourself because the other person won't acknowledge it for you. If somebody's angry, if somebody's ranting or somebody's raving, it's probably not at you. They're probably scared. They're probably scared of something else, and they might be quite fearful. They might be angry. They might be angry at a situation that has got this far, but they're not angry with you, but you are just there. You are the person they're going to yell at. So I always remind myself, okay, so you're angry, so you're scared, so you're afraid, so I can understand why you're being that way. The other thing that you have to really start to become very aware of is good old-fashioned mindfulness, a bit of the old Tibetan monk type theory, in just keeping your thoughts centered, keeping them in the moment, and not actually jump into any illogical conclusions yourself. Because as I say, it's about that. It's about questioning people. It's about when somebody's ranting and raving at you or somebody's really angry, you can allow them to have that anger. You can feel the heat of it, but it doesn't have to impact upon you.
Mm.
And you can do a little bit of tactical empathy with them. And it's that, you sound really angry. Seems to me like you're really upset over this. How are we going to make this situation different? What could you do to allow yourself to feel different about this? And also acknowledging, absolutely acknowledging, yeah, if that had happened to me, I would be angry as well. I'd be really upset with that. So I can understand how you're feeling. Do you want me to give you a little example of a live situation that happened the other day?
Please
It
do.
wasn't it wasn't a hostage situation, it wasn't a crisis situation, but it was a classic bit of negotiation. I went into Sainsbury's and I had to get a Freeview box for my mom because her telly had gone wrong. And you have to queue right up, and you can only do pay as you get there. You have to have already clicked and ordered it. You can't just go up to the Argos counter in Tesco's and just give them the number. And I went there and I said to the guy, "Here's the number," and he went, "Can't do that, mate." I went, "Yeah, I'm in a real hurry." I went, "I've just queued all the way up to the front," and he went, "Really sorry." He went, "There's the only way you can get your item is if you order it." And I thought, okay, let's get into the negotiator here. So I did look, I said, okay, I'm about to give you the worst possible day. You've got a queue a mile long. I've not even logged into your system. I'm going to be here ages doing this. And he went, okay. And I went, I didn't know I had to do that. And I said, but I tell you what, I could make it easier for you. And he went, how? I went, what if I start shouting and swearing and getting angry with you? And then when I leave, all the people behind me, they'll come up and they'll say, gee, that guy was rough on you. You didn't deserve that. And he went, oh, tell you what, mate. He went, why don't you just start logging in now? He went, and I'll pretend I'm doing something. Then I noticed his name was James, which was my son's name. So we built even more rapport. Then I started telling him about my life. Then the system went down on my phone. and I couldn't log in. And here you go. Here's the magic moment. I'd tried everything. He told me there was no way I could have my item without logging in. I went, James, just can't get on here. And he went, hang on a minute. And he turned to his manager and he went, can we just let this guy have one of these items without logging in? And he went, he's tried everything. And she went, yeah, of course you can. And I thought, now that is that classic moment where you are faced with something, Jack, where somebody's saying, no, Jack, that's impossible. That's never going to happen. Build rapport, do a little bit of an accusation audit, actually make the guy laugh, bring him on side. And he then told me they were going to do for me what they told me they couldn't. So you've got absolutely everything in there. You've got rapport building. I could feel myself initially because I got to the front of the queue and it was a hot day, getting angry. And I thought, whoa, just take it down a limit. And I thought, and it's not this guy's fault. So that's one of the ways you do that. It's how to get anything in life. Just be nice to people.
Yeah, that's. I don't find it a bit hard being nice to people, but what I do find it hard is being nice to people that are not nice to you. It's kind of that Patrick Swayze Roadhouse moment.
Yeah.
Where, you know,
be nice.
Like, yeah, whatever, just be nice.
Yeah.
I always found that hard. I was always the one to fly off the handle.
Yeah. Calmest man in the room, Jack. That's how you do it. It's about that. A lot of it is down to personal development. A lot of it is down to the path I choose to walk. I didn't always walk this path. I used to walk a very, very different path. But I think you actually get to that stage in life where you start to realize that. Let me give you an example. Some of the things that I've read have been a lot. Have focused a lot recently on the actual business of not just hostage negotiation, but kidnap and ransom, which is an area that absolutely fascinates me. And most of the time, these guys who actually in some of these smaller, more impoverished countries, they kidnap people on a regular basis. The actual kidnap and ransom consultant, the negotiator, treats the kidnappers like they are professional businessmen.
Right.
They absolutely treat them like they're professional businessmen. And these are guys who are swearing, shouting, holding guns to people's heads, swearing blind. If they do not get the money there by Friday, they will take a finger off. You absolutely treat them like professionals because you know you're probably going to have to deal with this person again. And it's a business. And a lot of the time, I mean, some of the situations, and I know a little bit about your background, some of those situations that you've been in that have been very hostile, there's been aggression, that there's been transactions involved with them. It is almost like in itself, there's a business culture within that. So most of the time, I will always remind myself, no matter how unhappy somebody is with me, no matter how aggressive someone is with me, there's a component to this that is business. And the chances are I might meet them again. So there's always that chance to build rapport every single time, no matter who it is you're dealing with. There used to be an advert on television years ago. It was an army recruitment advert. There you go. This stuff sticks in my mind. And there was a guy trying to negotiate with a local guy who was a member of the militia, armed to the teeth, and they wanted some water from the well. And you could just see the guy shouting and shouting and shouting at the squaddy. And suddenly the guy took his glasses off and the guy calmed down. They suddenly made eye contact and he smiled at him and they started talking. And it is reminding yourself that nobody is 100% hostile and aggressive all of the time. There's a reason for it. You have to get out of your own head. If you've ever read anything by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, he always talks about just being in the moment. And I know it's a bit Zen and the art of negotiation, if you like, but the minute you start projecting your fearful thoughts forward, or you start taking your thoughts back into the past, you fall out of. I mean, we've got good rapport at the moment,
Hmm.
and you fall out of that rapport. So it's staying in the moment, Jack. It's focusing on the very moment and putting your attention, all of your attention, on the other person. Really listening and active listening actually gets you out of your own head, and you then just start to becoming more successful at staying calmer.
Mm. I mean, it kind of, for me, it goes against almost everything that I learned as as let's say a taxman,
Yeah.
a debt collector, collecting debts and um, things like that, exchanges for different things. It's about then it was about instilling fear.
Yeah.
It wasn't about shouting. It was about getting a psychological hook.
Yeah.
You know, getting in the face, whispering things through your teeth into
Mm-hmm.
the ear. Um, you know, as much as you could without having to get violent, because having to get violent would be the last straw, because that causes noise, that
Yeah.
causes commotion, and then that causes the door to get knocked, and you
Yeah.
don't want that. So I can kind of understand, but it kind of goes against everything that I learned as a.
But you were working primarily on the psychology of fear.
Yeah.
Absolutely on the psychology of fear. And I always remember many years ago when they did the Cray Brothers movie with the Kemp brothers, the Kemp twins. It just said on the front, there was nothing else on the front of the video sleeve. You'll find
Mhm.
an old VHS of this.
I've got
I
it.
it probably it says something on there like, "Remember, when people are afraid of you, you can do anything." But I was talking to someone about, excuse me, about the concept of fear the other day, and a stranger analogy here. I always go back to David Tennant in The Christmas Invasion, Doctor Who,
Mhm.
where he's talking about fear being just a bit of voodoo, where they think everyone's going to jump off the building, but they're not. It's just that fear of where they've got people. And when you can get somebody into that psychology of fear, or when somebody is actually, and the people I actually face and talk to on a daily basis are in fearful states. I'm in fear of losing my home. I'm in fear of looking stupid. I'm in fear of something awful happening to me if I give up this position. You know, I cannot talk to, even I'm in fear of being in a room with someone who I actually used to be good friends with, and it's helping again. You're going back into the emotions. It's talking about that psychology of fear. It's talking about what it is, and it's giving those reassurances. But whereas I would have sat on one side of the fence, everything you were taught, but you've just said it yourself. The last thing you actually wanted to do was, to coin a phrase, was go tactical.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just wanted to install that psychology of fear. And how successful was it?
Quite successful. I mean, the last thing you want to do is um, take out somebody's knees, but at the end of the day, um, that's going to put you in prison.
Yeah,
That's the last thing you want. What you are there for is to collect money,
yeah,
or what you are there for is to take a certain product.
yeah.
Um, so the last thing you want to do is get violent, because you don't know with some people, you don't know what looking at someone
No,
how handy they're going to be. Um, I've always found that in a fight where there's more than one person, um, it's always the quiet one
yeah,
that you kind of keep you away from, because
yeah.
the ones that gobby are the ones that actually really don't want that conflict and they're trying to scare you off.
Hmm.
But the ones that aren't are the ones to be wary of.
Yeah, normally always the way. And again, it is that it's. I should imagine it was quite a bit built on your reputation as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, reputation of me, reputation of other people.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, I got off the reputation of other people as well. I can't say it was all me. I'm not a big guy. I don't instill that much fear when people looked at me, but it was the people that I hung about with that instilled the fear, and then to a certain point, that would give me a certain leverage with liberty with people.
Have you ever seen the film The Negotiator with Kevin Spacey and Samuel L.
I have. I
Jackson?
was going to bring that up and ask you how accurate that is.
Two things from that film. One of the funniest scenes in it at the beginning is where Kevin Spacey's wife's locked in the bathroom because she's had an argument with their daughter, and the daughter's talking on the phone, and Kevin Spacey's trying to get her out the bathroom and her off the phone, and he actually says to the daughter, he says, "Last month I talked a man out of blowing up the Sears Tower building. Today I can't talk my wife out of the bathroom or my daughter off of the phone." And she says, "Yeah, that's because you haven't got policemen stood behind you with high-powered rifles in their hand." And he goes, yeah. Is it accurate? It is very accurate, and I'll tell you why. They used a lot of genuine hostage negotiators to actually oversee the movie. Such as another movie where they had some genuine hostage negotiators was the remake of Pelham 123. Yeah, the modern day version. And in that, Samuel L. Jackson, he explains to someone one point about certain directions that your eyes move in when you lie or when you construct something as opposed to when you remember something. And it's an NLP technique. Now, it's not 100% infallible like all body language. You have to, with body language and reading people, you have to take things, you can't just take things solely as like saying, well, someone's scratching their nose, they're lying. You can't, you have to, it has to be a pattern, a collection of things. But he does something pretty clever in that. So yeah, the concept of that movie, um, being sort of like the negotiator negotiating with the negotiator, is something that fascinated me. But funnily enough, my one of my motivations to get me where I was today wasn't actually that movie. It was Inside Man, and
No.
it was the Jodie Foster character who negotiates um, and sort of mediates between Denzel Washington and Clive Owen. And that was that real inspiration because I didn't know who she was, and I kept thinking, who is that person that's negotiating? She doesn't work for the police, she doesn't work for the bank, and she was just a broker, she was just a negotiator. And at the time, that role fascinated me in that movie. In fact, I still love the film even today. So there's been those moments in my life where films, as you and I both know and have a passion for, have kind of motivated me and moved me forwards. But lots of films like that. There was a two-part TV series with Trevor Eve called Kidnap and Ransom, where he plays Dominic King. And the kidnap and ransom consultants they brought in on that were all ex-military. So they get it again 100% spot on in how he actually negotiates the kidnap and the ransom.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you why you chose the subject of your book, actually, about what
Ah,
monsters within us and the narcissists.
this
Because
little one here.
yeah,
Monsters live amongst us, he says, getting it out to do the blatantly disgusting, obvious plug for the book. Do you know why, Jack? Pure and simply, I was in an abusive relationship and I got out of that relationship, but I actually realized that I had a bit of a badge on me. I couldn't find it. I don't know where it was. There was something written on me somewhere that said, if you're a narcissist, please come and find me. I seemed to attract narcissists for a long while in my life, and I did not know why. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm really secure. I know a lot about psychology. I know a lot about therapy, and I can bang on about it for weeks. but I seemed to attract a certain type of narcissist. And when I got out of a relationship with a narcissist, I ended up back in a relationship with another one pretty quickly. I then ended up having probably between 2 or 3 managers who were narcissists. One who I worked with, who was the very ideal epitome of the textbook narcissist, who I was fascinated with. And it was then I really started studying narcissism. And I would watch this person and they would do things that were almost superhuman. And I couldn't believe what they would get away with. So I met with a friend of mine, a lady named Sally, and she works also in healthcare. And we were talking about narcissists, and she said, write a paper on narcissism. So I started to write a paper, and I don't know what, 180 pages longer, the paper became my book. And I put a lot of personal experiences. But I then started working with people as I was writing the book who were suffering with abuse. So I started to develop techniques for helping people get over narcissistic abuse, spotting them, stopping them, never being a victim again. And I devoted the whole second part of the book to what I called mental martial arts, which was
Right.
how to actually defeat a narcissist in conversation. And here's the strange thing about the book. And I promise you, and I'm not someone who ever wants to make money out of other people's misfortune. The book was released. It did okay. We sold a few copies. It was really nice. I was really proud of it. People started coming to see me as a therapist on the back of the book. And then lockdown happened. And all of a sudden, the book started to sell. And a very, very close friend and therapist who I know emailed me just a short piece to say, read your book, it's changed my life. And I put a piece on social media, not saying who they were or even saying what the post was, but just saying how grateful I was. And the post started to grow and grow. More people liked it, more people wrote about their experiences under the post, and the post grew into almost like a support group. And then hundreds of people started writing bits and pieces about how they've been abused, and they were supporting each other, and I would interact with them under the post. And this was the most amazing thing. I woke up one Sunday morning, and it was recently, it was about a couple of months ago, and had an email from Amazon to say your book is a bestseller.
Wow.
And I thought, how did that happen? How did I? And I had no idea. And I went online and I was so excited as a writer, and you'll understand this. I actually videoed myself looking at the Amazon page, and it sat up there higher than David Pelzer, and
Wow.
it sat up there with all these other great writers. And it had literally gone to, so I think it went to about as high as number 2 in the download charts and the bestseller charts. And the feedback, if you ever go on the book, if you go on Amazon and just read the feedback and read what people have said, it is so moving. And the actual little user group that's still about on Facebook under the post on my actual page, some of the experiences, Jack, are heartbreaking,
I
absolutely
can imagine.
heartbreaking.
I
So
can
I
imagine.
I've just felt so proud in lockdown when I think a lot of people have realised the amount of abuse they might be suffering, and they've become aware of it. That the little book has just helped move people away from that. So that was a rather long answer to a short question, Jack.
No, that's just a brilliant answer. Kind of when I was writing Between the Streetlights and Red Lights,
Yeah,
and speaking to these escapees of human trafficking and sexual slavery and exploitation, the one thing that sat with me was that all of their abusers were charming
yeah,
to start with. Is that something that is instilled in a narcissist? Can you tell the people that are watching what to look for? What is a narcissist, first of all, and what to look for?
If we go back into mythology, narcissists fell in love with their own reflection. And there is some basis in the actual reality of who narcissists are in that. In they are people who can have, and this is the bizarre thing, incredibly low self-esteem, but 100% almost self-belief at the same time. They are people who will always totally believe that whatever they do, whatever strategy they put in place, whatever thoughts they have, they're right. They are correct. And why would anybody want to actually correct them? Because they are who they are, And it is that person who will meet who will hugely credentialize themselves without actually having any evidence of what they've ever done. Probably have 1,000,000% confidence, but actually no real experience or knowledge of what they're talking about. And probably not care too much for anyone else's thoughts or opinions. Somebody told me something the other week about genes and gene cells, and it changed my entire thinking, my whole therapeutic thinking of what I've been telling people about how we're born. When we're born perfect. And I had to change my entire thinking with this whole new level of research. And they said to me, clearly you're not a narcissist then if you're going to take that new thought on board. It is that being able to update your innermost core beliefs. And that is the difference between us and someone who is narcissistic. I put several key indicators in my book of how to spot a narcissist. And there's things like highly intelligent. Sometimes you'll spot narcissists. One of the narcissists who I've worked with was incredibly intelligent, held multiple different qualifications, but actually underneath it all, their life was a complete mess. Complete inability to be able to conceptualize empathy, no understanding for the pain that they may have actually ever caused on someone. It's another key indicator to actually look out for. The strongest of all key elements, I always say to someone, when people say to me, I might be being abused by a narcissist, how would I know? And it's what I put in my book. If you're reading this book, you probably are. You probably, unconsciously, we know. We unconsciously always have an idea. And there's different levels of narcissism. There's covert narcissism, which is one of the worst ones of all. They can just lie dormant. You can be friends with them. They can be in your family. They're the ones who you have to be really careful of. And they're the ones who will often accuse other people of being narcissists. I mean, believe it or believe it not, I don't actually think I've encountered that many narcissists in my life. I know I've encountered a few, but I see some people's posts online who constantly say they're a narcissist, they're a narcissist, they're a narcissist, they're a narcissist. And sometimes I'm a little bit suspicious about people who talk about other people being narcissists all the time. So that's something to watch out with covert narcissism. And the worst thing is the gaslighting, is they will make you believe that you're a narcissist, almost to the point where you start to question yourself and think, am I? Am I that bad?
I've had
And
that.
yeah, I bet. You know who you are, Jack. You know your faults, you know your good points, you know your bad points. But the one thing I 100% put like my reputation and my book on the line is you are not a narcissist. There's absolutely, for a start, you wouldn't be doing this.
I think when you are an addict, people see you in that light.
Yeah.
There is a lot of sort of a lack of self-realization, but a lot of self-destruction, self-sabotage, and I think that some of the ways that we survive in active addiction kind of can not mirror but sort of impersonate certain
Yeah,
key triggers of narcissism.
yeah,
Would you agree?
yeah. But that's behavior, and it's actually, like you say, triggered out of necessity. You know the things that you have done in your life. That's what I love talking to you about, you, Jack. You're so comfortable with talking about these things and bringing them up. It's a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
That you just now absolutely know 100% you're not proud of, but you did them as though a means to an ends. But you didn't do them just because. Okay, you weren't somebody who was fantastically, brilliantly set up somewhere,
No,
or
that's
you
about
just thought,
survival.
yeah, you just thought, you know what? It's going to be an easier way of life if I just actually manipulate these people into getting what I want rather than building a relationship. You did what you did because, to a degree, you felt there's no other way here for me to do them. And the thing is, with people who are narcissistic, um, it's they look for that easier ride. They look for that easier life. And the one thing, and I'm putting this out as a message, and I understand it, I get it. What I'm about to tell you now, every single person asks me, and they don't always like the answer I give, but I'll give the same answer. Every single person who I ever meet who comes to see me, who's read my book, says, why do they do that? What makes them do that? Can they ever change? And my advice for anyone regarding narcissism, if you've been a victim of it, is they do it because they believe they're right. They do it because it works for them. It was a strategy they can use and they can get away with it time and time again. Don't ever try and change them. You heal, you grow strong, and you move away from them. That's it. That's as good as it gets. It doesn't get any better than that. Now, I know people are fascinated by narcissists. I'm actually not that fascinated by narcissists. I've learned a lot about them. I'm more fascinated with the people who've been victims and how they can grow and repair themselves. And as I always say to people, if you're that interested, go and read some books on narcissism. Go and read some books on people who are sociopaths, like psychopaths. It's a fascinating subject, but don't get close to them thinking you can change them. You'll never get a narcissist in the therapy room, ever, because why would I want to go there? It's completely illogical. I'm right and everyone else is wrong. So that is one of the major things to be aware of, is you can't change them, you can't heal them, you can't make them better people. The reasons for them actually becoming abusive and narcissistic could be tenfold. They could have undergone terrible tragedies in their life. They may have just been born that way. We're still in our infancy and learning about this. It is as good as it gets. It's like a fire. You can, every time you put your hand in, it will burn you. You cannot teach the fire the concept of please don't burn me.
Yeah,
Frog and the Scorpion. It's on my website. It's in my nature. I'm going to do it. You're
that's
going to
one
put,
story I was told in rehab.
yeah, Frog. And there you go. Josie, can't be fixed. Absolutely, Josie. So don't even try. A fire does not know not to burn you. That's the narcissist for you. Good as it gets. And I think that's what I tried to do in the book. I just tried to get that message across. It is a very different book. I know that it's hard hitting. I've set that out from the outset. I've said this is hard. If you've been abused by a narcissist, it's only ever happened for two reasons. One, they spotted you were ripe for abuse. Two, you allowed it to happen.
Yeah, and I don't think we always, excuse me, I don't think we always understand that we allow it to happen.
No,
I think that there are, with a certain amount of people, there's a certain amount of charm, and it comes down to grooming and making you feel a certain way to build you up, and then to tear you down, um, and take you back down to the first rung of that ladder. Um,
absolutely. It's one of the main strategies. It's that give and take. It's that give you what you want. maybe give you that adulation, give you that respect, give you that love, and then whoom, take that away from you and watch how hard you work trying to get it back. Do anything to get it back. And that's when they have that control, that coercion, that power over you, is literally when you are on the floor, when you are dog dirt desperate, crying, broken, and they're going, nah, still not interested. I wonder if I can make you work just that bit harder. It is one of the worst kinds of abuse. It really is.
I think that I've kind of seen it. So I don't want to get political, but I've kind of seen it in people like Trump and some of our politicians, and I find it. I don't find it fascinating. I find it quite insidious and sinister that our world leaders are able to do that.
I was talking to someone the other day about the concept of ego. And one of my other heroes is a lady named Judy Smith, who they based the TV series Scandal on. And she wrote a fantastic little book called Good Self, Bad Self that isn't that well known in the UK. And she's a crisis negotiator, she's a general fixer, and she wrote about the 7 states that get us into crises. And here's the thing, one of them is ego. But in Good Self, Bad Self, it's a fantastic read because she takes these 7 traits, such as accommodation, ego, and she actually says you have to acknowledge you need a certain amount of them to get so far. You have to have a certain amount of strength of character or ego to get somewhere in life. Otherwise, you'd just do nothing. If your ego was on the floor, you wouldn't go anywhere, you wouldn't achieve anything, you'd think nobody cares about you, nobody wants you, you couldn't make a difference. So you have to acknowledge you need a certain amount of it. But when certain political egos run amok, shall we say, that's when things hit crisis point. Because like anything, you need that absolute balance. So, for somebody to be able to literally go before an audience of millions of people and, shall we say, just a recent example, completely buck the actual world of reality around them and go, no, basically this isn't happening. A, takes an awful strength of character to do that, and B, is also very concerning at the same time. But as we've seen, that can very much happen.
So you say we can't be a fixer. I see my friend Josie. She spent a lot of time trying to fix certain people. What are the things that we can put in place to be able to deal with that? Not fix them, but do we need to fix the people who need to fix themselves?
Jack, I'll tell you my formula. I'll tell you my recipe for this. And again, it's not easy. But if you can do it, you take yourself to a whole new level. And it's not nice. I'm proud of my book, but some of the information in there I know is a bitter pill for many people. When I got to a stage in my life where I became so secure, so comfortable just being on my own, just living in my own world, just being with me, not needing anyone, not wanting anyone, you actually reach that state of thinking, wait a minute, I'm not bomb-proof, but I'm bulletproof here. I couldn't actually be abused again because I've built this solid edifice that's not shaky. And you can always think, well, if I start dating, if I see people, if I'm in a relationship with someone and that person turns out to be not the person I want to be with, they're slightly abusive, you won't have that desperate need or that hunger to cling on to it. You'll actually think, well, do you know what? I've got this lovely kind of nice, solid backstop to go to. I was good on my own, I'll be good on my own again. And it is one of the strongest, most powerful deterrents you can ever do to actually deter anyone from abusing you. Because then you go back to the beginning of the book where I said, somebody spotted you were ripe for abuse. People will now realize, hey, wait a minute, this is a strong person. They don't actually, they're not needy, they're not desperate. So they're not going to allow me to abuse them. So your abuser will move on. Sadly, they'll move on to someone who hasn't learned that lesson. And I know it's a strange thing to say because we we want to be with people, we want to be in relationships, and we want to have people that we love. But you've got to always know that whatever is happening, you can go back to that solid, independent state. I always think of Hugh Grant in About a Boy, where he talks about island living, and he's like, now is the time to be an island. And at the end of the film, he actually says it's okay to still be an island, but an island can be a chain that connects underneath to other islands. Self-development, working on yourself, finding that real inner core strength of who you are, um, not allowing somebody to actually bend your reality, to drag you down. And you can only do that by having some really lovely, strong core beliefs about yourself. And that main one, your story. Now, this is a little bit of a reshaping for you. This might surprise you. Your story to me is one of survival. It is one of complete independence. It is one of total survival. It is one of no matter what happened, I was able to survive it. And pretty honest, you were on your own out there at times, weren't you?
I was, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you were at your own.
Certainly in my own mind.
Yeah, you
Um,
were on your own.
you can have people that offer advice, and you can have people around you, but inside you can feel so alone.
Yeah,
One thing that I learned through the 12 step way of life and the 12-step program is to it's kind of what you said, and it is about resetting that default.
yeah,
As an addict, my default was to use. So if somebody pissed me off, I would use. If I was extremely happy, I would use. If it was just a normal day, I would use, because that would be my default.
yeah,
And as with our brain and our lives, look at it like a computer. You've got custom settings, and then you've got the default settings, and sometimes you've got to reset that default.
yeah,
So instead of I don't really want to go into religion because that's a totally different episode and a totally different night. But the program that I work is a spiritual program.
yeah,
You know that I'm a member of a church. My faith means a lot to me. And once I changed my default from picking up a drink to the step two, and which is realizing that there is a higher power, there is a God, and
yeah,
that you couldn't do it on your own.
yeah,
On whether that higher power is, you choose to call him God or Allah or Dave down the park, whatever. It's you can't do it on your own.
yeah.
You've tried so many times, and you just keep falling. But it's sometimes takes that one person, that one word, that one kind thing.
But you're dealing with the most powerful thing of all here, Jack. Beliefs. And this is what I always say to people. Beliefs are what, like people will go to war on a belief. Beliefs can be amazingly strong things. Beliefs to me are tables. They've got a leg in each corner and a solid top, and you can rest all your stuff on them. And if you've got a good solid belief, you can rest everything on it, and you'll know everything will be okay. And what you have to be aware of with narcissists is they will actually try and destabilize your beliefs. They will knock one of those legs away so everything falls off the table.
Mm.
If I've got someone who's got limiting self beliefs, who I work with people with limiting self beliefs or poor beliefs or negative beliefs, I will help them to destabilize them. But you've got that solid belief system that you've actually got there, and however people will achieve that through, with me, it was like through learning therapy, mediation, negotiation, finding out who I really was, what my purpose was in life, or be it spiritual, be it for a religion, or be it for a group of people. When you have that solid belief in who you are, again, it makes you so difficult to actually to be abused, because you'll question it, you'll question them, and you'll
Mm.
think, hang on, wait a minute, why would I want to allow someone to do that? The question's gone. Your friend asked a question a minute
Yeah.
ago. I think it was, can you make someone into a narcissist?
Yeah. Josie.
I think if that narcissistic intent is in someone, um, it's not a case that we, as grown-ups, bring it out in people. So I don't think we could ever. I mean, obviously, we can all go through horrendous levels of abuse, and we can become very hard bitten. We can experience all manner of trauma and pain, and that will shape us. Um, but we have to decide how that trauma and pain shapes us. I think there were two guys who got shot down in Vietnam many years ago, two of these early Top Gun pilots, and they were both held captive next to each other in these really short bamboo like prisons. And they were just given water, they were given rice, and they were beaten on a regular basis, both treated the same. One guy actually, and I forget his name, which is a pity because he wrote a great book. He actually decided on day one, he went, okay, uh, things are going to be different for a while. Um, I'm going to make a few decisions. I'm going to start communicating with myself differently because I know the outside world here isn't going to change. So I'm going to change myself. He immediately made a conscious decision to turn to God. And he thought, well, I'm going to have someone to talk to. So I'm going to start talking to God. He started working out every day. He started getting fitter and healthier and more spiritual. And even when things were happening, like he was being tortured and beaten, he used to say, well, do you know what? One or two things are going to happen. I'll either pass out with the pain or they'll get fed up and they'll stop. He came out, I think he was held for something like 2 or 3 years, healthy, strong, keen, wrote this amazing book. Sadly, the man next to him in the other very small confined prison, he took his own life not long after being released. It's how we choose to communicate with ourselves. It's what we actually decide that we're going. I always say to people, you can't control or change the outside world. You can't change anything about it. There's only two things that you can actually change. You decide what something means to you and how you're going to choose to respond to it. That's as good as it gets. Now, I know that's a very long-winded way because somebody was saying, can you make someone into a narcissist? I think if that intent is in there and they were actually maybe abused or treated badly as a small child, then possibly. But if someone has said to you as a grown-up, do you know, before I met you, I was fine, and what you've done has made me into a narcissist, that would be a prime bit of gaslighting going on. That would be a prime bit of abuse. So just be mindful of anyone that would repeatedly say, yeah, I wasn't like this until you came along. Because they had a decision to choose how they wanted to respond to your behavior. And that's what you've done is in your later years, you suddenly decided, and excuse me if I'm telling you your own mind.
Fine.
You decided that things were going to mean something different to you, and you were going to choose to respond differently to them. And
Mm.
basically, you asked yourself a better set of questions, didn't you?
Yeah. So being in lockdown and mental health issues being at a high, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people suffering anxiety and suffering some real sort of mental health issues during lockdown. That's the thing about solitary confinement, that
Yeah.
it can attack your mind. It can build a prison in your own mind. And for example, being in a 8x10 cell in solitary confinement, you can find things in your mind to do.
Yeah.
You can find things to keep your mind occupied. You can find things mentally and physically. Whereas, as we are now, there's almost too much to do. We've
Yeah.
got mobile devices, we've got televisions, we've got Netflix. It's all endless, and there's too much to do. So, and then that, for me, at the start of the first lockdown, that caused me some real difficulties in getting work done, because I couldn't concentrate. All I wanted to do was watch 80s films just to keep my head to a certain above water.
Yeah.
What can people do out there to to help? Can you offer some suggestions to
Yeah,
help
of course.
survive lockdown?
I think this time, first of all, hopefully, and forgive me if I'm living in a bit of a cage here, if your experience is different, I won't have any argument for you. Hopefully we'll find it a little bit easier this time. We're told it's going to end on the 2nd of December. We hope it will. I mean, we don't really know. I think we've become a little bit better. Maybe, I mean, like going out into the shops now, they're not so packed. People aren't panic buying. We've got a little bit more acclimatized to this. Basically, there's two or three key things that you need to do. And I know it's the same information that everybody says, but it is great information, so I will go over it again. The first one is what you and I are doing now, communication. Even if it's just only online, if you're having an online conversation with someone. During first lockdown, there was times when I was quite isolated, and all my negotiation work that I did through the police and housing associations, I had to do it all over the phone. And some days, I'll be honest, I would struggle a little bit to actually pick the phone up because I hadn't spoken to anyone else that day. There was that, you really get a bit muted. So I was kind of aware that I was getting online and chatting to people and saying, hi, how are you? And phoning people up just to get that rhythm going, to get the cogs turning in my head. So communicate. There's so many people out there. And I know it's easy to say that, we're closer but more divided than ever. And there's certain people who believe that. But I know that there's people who will be out there who'll be willing to talk. I have people contact me and just want to have a quick chat. The bizarre thing is, releasing a book, you get calls from all over the world. People just going, I've just read your book. Can I chat to you for 10 minutes? And yeah, okay. And I never mind doing that. The second one is get out the house. Now, I know that, like masked up, sanitizer and everything else, but you can't just get out, get some fresh air in your lungs. Just go for a walk. Even if you just walk round the block 2 or 3 times, just get out the house. Do that. Just make sure. The third thing is, and this one's a little bit different. I'm going to go with something that we don't always actually hear. And it's not what you'd expect from me, but creativity. Start to get yourself involved in something that you wouldn't normally be involved in. Pick up an instrument if you've got the opportunity. Go and learn something. There's so many brilliant free courses online at the moment. Some of the stuff that you can find through places like Coursera and the Open University, Open website, whatever it's called. Start to engage your brain with a little bit of something. And again, you'll find more people you can connect with and talk to. In second lockdown, I wrote my second book. I didn't mean to. It was a mistake. But I had a lot of time on my hand. And a friend pointed out that a blog that I was going to produce went, that should be a book. And that getting absorbed in something, you have to be careful not to get too insular. But when you do that, when you start to, and I know it's me being a bit of an old hippie here for a minute, when you get those creative energies flowing, when you start to put your creativity in something, it actually really does raise and lift your spirits. Connect, bit of creativity, get yourself out of the house are three of the best things that I can actually advise in lockdown.
Mm. I've always found, um, as you know, I'm a very creative person, and I've always found creativeness very cathartic.
Yeah,
But I've also found that it's been um, it's actually been part of the problem as well.
yeah,
Um, that wanting to succeed, that pushing, um, that the unhealthy things that it brings, the competitiveness. I hate competitiveness now. I used to be a very competitive person, um, and for me, victory is the same as defeat. It's given into those same competitive urges.
hmm,
And um, I think with creativeness, that we're in being a writer, and on Amazon, there's so many people, on Facebook, so many people pushing to get their voice across,
yeah,
and pushing against people, and
hmm.
trying to be best in that sort of thing, and it drags you down, and it can be part of the solution, but a big part of the problem.
I think you have to be so careful. This I designed this cover with a friend of mine, and my friend Lee helped me design this cover. And I thought monsters live amongst us. Person's face pulling this mask off. I thought brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I thought you genius, you've come up with something totally unique. And I used a program called Poser, and I designed the face on it, and I designed them on the hand cut, and I thought this is legend. I thought that's it. And went on Amazon, and there was about 9 other books about narcissism, all with like people pulling masks off and heads off and hold. And I thought, oh, forget it. So, and it really did. I thought, oh, start.
Mm.
And I thought, no, don't start again. Just go with what you got. It's a good cover. That it's overwhelmed. I think it's overwhelmed that you can actually look at and think on a creative element that no one's ever going to read my book. I'm never going to get my story out here because there's so many others. The new book that I've just finished, we haven't even named it, um, and I'm fairly certain in saying that it's quite unique. Um, the second book I wrote in lockdown, it's all about how to separate or divorce from your partner and do it really low cost, but actually also enable you to do it stress free, but keep just with the ability to keep talking and negotiating with them. We're coming up with all manner of titles like, Save on Your Separation or The Art of Divorce. Um, but when I actually Googled this, when we went through Amazon, we couldn't find another book that did this. There's books about how to allow yourself to split up with someone, how to feel good about yourself. There's legal books, but this is a completely non-legal book that came out of my divorce and separation. I separated with someone who I've been with for a long period in my life. It's a very, very lovely, lovely person, and we just sort of separated. And we did the whole separation for £125, and that was my friend Lee saw the blog post and he went, "That's a book, buddy. That is a book you've written." Someone would want to see that. And then my actual divorce, I mean, that was very cheap. I had a brilliant solicitor um, who showed me how to actually separate from someone and spend hardly any money on it. So when you talk about overwhelm, we'd gone on there. There was initially so many different books about separation and
Mm.
divorce, but I thought there's no book that actually teaches you, no modern book that says if you take the approach of a mediator or a negotiator and you become your own mediator and negotiator, you can save thousands on your separation. as somebody pointed out, there's a chain going on here. There's like first the book about narcissism. Now there's the book about separation. I'm for such positive light subjects. I'm a real bringer of light, aren't I?
So, what's the next natural step for you then? So we're publishing this book about separation. What what are our plans?
I want to give something back. I want to give something completely away that's totally free. Um, there's a guy who I know called Steve Thompson, and I was chatting to you about him earlier. And
Yep.
he's a real expert on marketing, PR, and he taught me something about a year ago. And he said it is so important now that we actually give stuff away, we give stuff back. And I'm a big fan of Martin Lewis, who's the money saving expert,
Yeah.
and I love his website. I've designed a website that I think is pretty unique. I hope it really helps people, and it's completely free. It's called resolveanydispute.com. And on
Yes.
there, if you're in conflict with your family, your neighbors, work, business, uh, any particular area of your life, or matrimonial issues, relationship issues, the website gives you a really good insight is how to resolve these yourself for nothing, how to actually save yourself money. So I thought, while we got people in lockdown, while we got people who have not got a lot of spare money, I'll tell you, I'm never going to be able to get another solicitor or lawyer again in my life. They're going to hate me after this. I'm actually showing people how to resolve their disputes and I'm giving the game away. I'm pulling back the curtain here. This is the end of the Wizard of Oz.
Well,
I'm actually showing you on this website. This is how I do it. I'm a trained negotiator. I'm a trained mediator. I've done all these various jobs over the years in high level negotiation with the police, with housing associations, yada yada yada. And this is how I do it. This is what you do, and it's all up there. It's resolveanydispute.com. When the book's released, we're going to put the book up there, so there'll be a link to that as well. Um, I think that's enough for a while.
I think we've gone on for quite a while. I think people could do with some time to how to put it, some time to digest.
Can I just, before we do, I just want to say something, and nobody actually knows this, and I even wonder if you're aware of it, but I'm going to mention it. Um, you and I met many years ago
We
when
did.
somebody said you were going to do a radio interview, and
I
you were
was,
a
yes.
little bit apprehensive. And a friend of ours, Dave,
Yeah.
Frankie, said, you want to speak to Jason Edwards. And I came round to see you, and I started to talk to you about radio because I've been on the radio, and we did a little bit of work about confidence. And I started talking to you, and you just closed your eyes and went into a trance. And I thought, oh my God, I wasn't even really a trained therapist or
Mm.
hypnotherapist back then. And I thought, what on earth am I going to do? And I thought, well, just carry on. And I just
Mm.
carried on talking to you in this trance state and relaxation and brought you out of it. You were the very first person I ever did any kind of work on therapy, motivation, coaching. And like I say, it was just
Wow.
stuff that I'd read in books. And I owe an awful lot to you because what you did, you gave me that confidence to then actually take it to that next level and start studying and training. So I just wanted to honor you tonight and say it all started with you. So thank you very
I'm humbled.
much.
I'm
No,
actually truly humbled
thank
and
you.
speechless. I think it's a sort of really quite fitting then that you're the first person that I've interviewed. Um, as you know, I find it difficult stepping out over fear, and um, having interviewed people on the phone
Yeah.
is something different to this. And I think that something's clicked for me tonight. I found it, I haven't. I was a bit nervous before we started, but I found it quite easy and settling, and I think that I think that myself, I've got a lot from it, and I think that other people have, from some of the comments, have really got something from it. So I just want to thank you for, taking the time out to speak to me, to speak to other people, and just answer some of the questions. And I hope to work with you again soon.
Be my pleasure. Jack, thank you so much. Just keep going. That's all you ever need to do. Just keep going. It's been an absolute pleasure being on here tonight. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Jason. I'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Thank you very much, everyone. I shall be off. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This has been absolutely mind-blowing for me. I want to thank everybody that has, that has asked questions and put in input. I've certainly got a lot from it. And thank you again, Jason, for actually agreeing to be my first, my first episode. I didn't know how it was going to go, but if you guys want to just, let me know what you think down here, somewhere down here. Drop in the comments your thoughts. If there's anybody or anything that I can bring into future episodes that you would like to see or listen to or learn about, I'd be more than happy to try and make that happen. I'm going to be speaking to world champion boxer Dominic Negus, and we're going to be talking about his life and his experience, and where he's come from and where he is now. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that connect us, and I think that's going to be another really interesting evening. So we're looking at about 7:00 on Wednesday. So I want to thank everybody for getting involved, and everybody for just having some patience and not getting bored. We've had a steady few in here tonight, so I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to leave you to it, and you're just going to relax and digest some of this. So thank you, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.